All right,
Brooke's logging in. She's logging in right now, so she'll be on in 1 sec. So let me do a FanDuel read to knock that out of the way.
Knock it out.
It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with that, we will welcome in Brooke Pryor, Pittsburgh Steelers beat reporter for ESPN, to help us break down some of Pittsburgh's offseason moves and get us ready for the schedule release tomorrow. How you doing today, Brooke?
I am great. I can't complain. I'm ready for the season to start, which I didn't think I would say like a month ago.
I said that earlier.
Yeah, we were just discussing that.
Like normally in May, I could give a rip about football.
OTAs,
but
man. It's a big time.
I'm like, you hear some of these games that are lined up already, and I'm ready.
Have you, Brooke? Have there been any breaking news on the Steelers yet? I haven't seen any, unless it's happened in the last hour. I haven't been on my phone, but anything on the Steelers in terms of
nothing
schedule?
in the last. Nothing. Nope. Nothing for them in the schedule yet. I know international games. I would expect those to come out before the actual official schedule announcement, but I don't think the Steelers are in line for any of those this year. So it seems like we're going to be waiting maybe like 24, 36 more hours for official news on the Steelers release.
I'm going to predict Steelers at Bengals week 1 because I know the Bengals are on the road week 2, which means they almost definitely have to be home week 1. The Ravens are playing the Chiefs and the Browns are playing the Cowboys. So I'm guessing they'll want to have one division game week 1. So I'm going to predict Pittsburgh at Cincinnati for week 1.
It wouldn't be the first time. I think they opened up against Cincinnati 2 years ago.
That's right.
In Mitch Trubisky's first game. That was the game that TJ Watt got hurt and really kind of derailed a lot of the early part of that season, although the offense kind of did a lot of the derailing itself. But it didn't help that they didn't have TJ Watt out there. So it wouldn't be unprecedented. Sign me up for that. I'm all for seeing the Steelers defense go against Joe Burrow and the Russell Wilson experience, all of that to get out on the field against the Bengals.
Were you getting cocky because you picked Browns-Cowboys?
I did. I predicted Browns-Cowboys, so I'm going to try to.
So now you're just going to call them all?
Was that the game where they was missing the field goals or the kickers got hurt or something?
I believe the Steelers had a big lead. The Bengals came. I think Burrow threw a few interceptions. The Bengals came back. And I think they missed an extra point that would have won the game.
Don't be that impressed with his memory. He's a Bengals fan.
Yeah, I think the Steelers then missed a field goal. Then the Bengals missed a field goal. It was
something wild.
It was a crazy game. I think. I don't remember.
Wow.
It went to overtime.
Who needs Gamecast when we've got you? I mean, that was a flawless play-by-play. That was really impressive. I can't remember like the last game I covered last season, and you've got one from 2 years ago dialed in.
Yeah.
You have ADD.
Hey, Bull, let's see how good your memory is.
Yeah,
true.
The Bengals scored a touchdown in that game with 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
Do you remember the play?
I believe it was Burrow to Tyler Boyd for a touchdown, wasn't it?
That is incorrect. Brooke, do you remember the play?
Oh, I sure don't remember the play. The fact that I could even pull that TJ Watt got hurt in that game, I'm done for the day. That's the most impressive thing I'm going to remember.
Okay, that was impressive.
So who was
What do you got, Mike?
Tyler Boyd scored a touchdown in the third quarter. Jamar Chase caught a 6-yard fade pass with 2 seconds left.
That's right.
To send it to overtime.
Brooke, what's been your favorite offseason move with Pittsburgh this year?
As much attention as the quarterbacks have gotten, and like deservedly so, I think the Patrick Queen edition is the thing that I think is the best move the Steelers have pulled off, because I remember I was kind of going through and making a Steelers wish list for their free agents and who they could try to pull. And I was going through the list of available, inside linebackers. And I said, Patrick Queen would be the dream, but there's no way they're going to do that because that would be such an un-Steelers-like move to sign the best free agent on the market. And lo and behold, they saw that and said, joke's on you. That's exactly what we're going to do. I think that's a position that they've really put an emphasis on the last couple years of trying to overhaul. The Devin Bush draft pick didn't go well. They had some injuries there after they tried to, sign Miles Jack. And then he didn't pan out because he was older and on the back end of his career. He obviously came back last year as a guy that was literally on his couch. But they also tried to sign Cole Holcomb, or they did sign Cole Holcomb 2 years ago or last year. And then he ends up with this catastrophic knee injury. And so they have put a lot of resources into it. But I think that Patrick Queen is someone that they didn't have to shop the bargain bin for. They didn't have to look for like what's a really good value under the radar type of player. They went for the guy that was square in the middle of the target bullseye and said, that's who we want. And they went out and got him. So I think in this division, the fact that, the Ravens add Derrick Henry, the Browns obviously have a great run game. The Bengals, not so much right now after letting Joe Mixon go to the Texans. But I think that one thing you need to have in this division is a really strong run defense, and the Steelers really shored that up with Patrick Queen.
Is Justin Fields really going to be the kick returner?
God, I hope not. Look, from like a story perspective, yes, I would love to write that story. It gives me something exciting to talk and write about. From a logical perspective, why in the world would you put your backup quarterback out there knowing that there was a historically high number of quarterbacks who played in the league last year because of all the quarterback injuries? Yes, I know that the kick return is supposed to be safer now, and they're putting in all of these rule changes to make that the case, and Justin Fields is really fast and he's a guy that can absorb some contact, but why would you do that when you also signed Cordell Patterson? And if you really want to be creative, put Jalen Warren back there. He's fast. He can stiff arm a guy until next week, but you're not going to put Justin Fields, your backup quarterback, out there when your third string quarterback is either Kyle Allen or John Reese Plumlee, who I hadn't heard of before 2 weeks ago. So I don't think that's really going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it in training camp, because the Steelers like to give us fun things to talk about, like Kendrick Green at fullback before they traded him. So, I'm sure that we will see it, but we will not see it in a real game.
I hate when Bull does this to me, so I'm glad I can get to turn around and do it to somebody else. Percentage chance Justin Fields is the starting quarterback at the end of the season, even if Russell Wilson is still healthy.
Oh, man.
Good question.
There's so many variables in that, too, because, what's the record at the end of the season?
Yeah.
How successful was the offense? How successful is the defense? I think I give it a 50-50.
Wow. Okay.
Especially, listen, and that's because when you look at the contract situation for both of those guys, they're not under contract beyond this season. So at some point, the Steelers have to evaluate Justin Fields to figure out, hey, we didn't pick up his fifth-year option because we're not going to spend $25 million on a guy that we haven't seen with our own eyes in our system. But at some point, you have to figure out, are we going to continue to employ this guy before he hits free agency, or are we going to extend Russell Wilson and employ him longer? Or are we going to go to the draft and try to draft another quarterback? And I think a lot of that depends on how the season's shaping up, what their draft status looks like, where it looks like they're going to be slotted. And this quarterback class is not nearly as strong as the one that we just saw go through when they had, 6 quarterbacks in the first round. So there's a lot of variables there. But because of that, I would say there's a 50-50 shot that Justin Fields is the guy that's taking snaps in the last week of the season.
Brooke, to that point, why is it that Mike Tomlin gave Russell Wilson the job and they're not having a real competition? Because from my perspective, we all know Russell Wilson is a much more accomplished quarterback of the two, but I would argue that Justin Fields still has, at this point, way more upside than Russell Wilson. Now, I don't know if he's going to ever reach it, but so why would they not have a competition? And even though he's guaranteed it, but maybe that's not true. Maybe secretly there is, and there's a chance that Fields could start week 1, or no buying that.
I think that there is a competition. I don't know how realistic it is that means that Justin Fields will start week 1. I think that Mike Tomlin's been very intentional in saying the phrase pole position every time he talks about the quarterback's depth chart. And so help me God, if I hear the phrase pole position one more time after the first week of the season, I give up. I quit. I'm jumping into one of the 3 rivers. But I think that he's doing that because he wants to avoid the situation that happened with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, where internally Mitch Trubisky was said, hey, this guy's the starter. But externally, we saw a quarterback competition through camp where they wouldn't say who the starter was, but Kenny Pickett wasn't getting many first-team reps, although sometimes Mason Rudolph was like, oh, maybe this guy's going to be the leader in the clubhouse. Maybe he'll come out and start week 1. But it just became very convoluted and I think was a source of tension. And you saw then they get to week 4, unceremoniously take Mitch Trubisky out, put Kenny Pickett in, and everyone is at a disadvantage in that situation because Kenny Pickett didn't have very many reps with the starters during training camp. And so I think this is a way to say, hey, this is the pecking order that we want to go with. We want Russell Wilson to establish a leadership infrastructure on the offense that hasn't existed in the last couple of years. But to do that, he kind of has to be put in a place in pole position. Unfortunately, I hate to use that phrase, but he has to be kind of given a role to be able to take it and run with it. And the Steelers said to Justin Fields, hey, we're going to trade for you. We don't necessarily see you as a starter right now, but we want you to learn under Russell Wilson. Maybe we don't want you to pick up all of his habits and the things that have not gone well for him recently, but we want you to learn how to be a pro, how to function in a franchise that is not just kind of hapless and constantly struggling to get out of its own way. So I think that they're doing all of this very intentionally to eventually set up Justin Fields to take over if he shows them what they want to see on the field.
Brooke, after they didn't pick up Najee Harris's fifth-year option, so do you think this will be his last year, and was you shocked that they didn't pick up his option?
I was lowercase shocked that they didn't pick up his option because financially, like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why you wouldn't pick that up. That was what, $6.7 million. That's pretty inexpensive for a guy that's given you 1,000 yards in each of his first 3 seasons, running behind an offensive line that has not been very consistent. It's finally starting to turn a page, but he's had all that production behind an inconsistent offensive line with just a carousel of quarterbacks that there hasn't been any real rhythm offensively, and Najee Harris is still getting it done. He's not doing it in a sexy way by any means, but he's still very productive. And the way he ended last season, I think, showed how good he can be when they figure out the right balance of him and Jalen Warren and get a quarterback in there that's moving the ball. And then you factor in the fact that he's going to be in Arthur Smith's system, who's a guy that wants to run the ball, that's going to do things in the run game and really emphasize the trenches to get Najee Harris a lot of touches. But I think the Steelers also said, hey, we do have Jalen Warren, and he is much more inexpensive, and he's just as productive in a different way, but he's a more dynamic back, where Najee Harris is kind of just a grind and pound type guy, ground and pound type of guy. And so I think that this is their chance to say, you know, how does this work in Arthur Smith's system? And do we think that we can replace Najee Harris with a big body back in the draft next year and pay less for him than we would Najee Harris? I think that, yes, the Steelers are going to be interested, depending on how the season goes, in trying to work out a deal with Najee's team in that time between the end of the regular season and free agency. But I think if Najee Harris's team thinks that they can get more on the open market for a guy that's had all of these 1,000-yard seasons, they're probably going to look elsewhere.
Real quick, Brooke, 30 seconds. Recap of the Steelers draft and one player that will have the biggest impact.
Ooh, I'm going to go with Zach Frazier, the center that they got, in the second round, because they have not had a very consistent center since Pouncey retired. That has been an area that they have tried to convert Kendrick Green from guard to center. That didn't go well. They brought in Mason Cole, hoping that he would be a leader and a consistent center, and he had trouble cleanly snapping the ball last year, which is kind of a big deal for a center. So I think that Zach Frazier, with all of the college experience that he had, that's the guy he's going to plug in, be a day one starter, and be the thing that really gets this offensive line turned around and going in the right direction.
All right, Brooke, remember who told you Steelers at Bengals week 1. Thanks for joining us.
You better stretch on those victory laps.
I'll go ahead and pre-write that story. Thank you.